mentor is not a screen for your projections, but a mirror for your reflections. But part of the penchant for rescuing has to do with our own sense of discomfort, right? So the question is, are you able to stand in the fire? Yeah. To feel these flames, this intensity, the same as with conflict, right? Are we able to sit in discomfort without having to change it, without having to, ameliorate it immediately, right? And, because sometimes there's the heat of the fire of a conflict or the tension of some kind of pain and suffering. So oftentimes the penchant for rescuing has to do with the rescuer feeling uncomfortable about somebody else's suffering or pain. And so they try to fix it because they are uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Versus understanding that that pain is the teacher for that individual, right? And that we can endeavor to mitigate suffering, but we can't necessarily take that pain away because that pain is the mentor and the teacher for that individual.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of what, and I'd be interested to get your opinion on this, but I'll say mine first on the mothering role that is available in just in community and cultures in general. Because I think of that's, a mom is there to kiss the boo-boos, right? For the children, to make them feel better. But it's not to take their pain away for them. I think that mothering at its finest is over the course of a child's young lifetime, preparing them to hold their own pain, but meeting them where they're not yet willing or able to go. So like a kid falls and bangs their head and they're scared. The mother can bridge the gap and the child can, I think of it visually where a child can only go so far in their own recovery from that event. And then the mother can meet them halfway and then kind of help them along. And over the course of them growing to be a teenager and an adolescent and a young adult, that ideally they're able to do that themselves. And even in ceremony, when somebody's getting well or processing something, I've seen people, especially new folks, the inclination is to put a hand on their back and kind of rub their back or do something that's very nurturing, very maternal. But I know there's also this, we'll let them be in that because they're okay here. We're still here. We're not abandoning them because we're not putting our hand on their back. In fact, we're helping them learn to take care of themselves, not in isolation, but in community. It's a different idea for a lot of people.
I think it's also being comfortable with the notion of being powerless, right? So yes, that child falls and is crying and screaming, and then the mother is going to rush to that child and cradle that child and rock that child. But I don't think that's just exclusively women. I think that's men as well. I think there's a tendency for us, we can actually mother and be fatherly. I mean, there's certainly women that may be listening to this call who are single parents of sons, and so, they're going to assume some of that masculine role, energetically as best as they can. Okay. So, but there's, I'm reminded of the medicine woman who, it was the first time that I shared the story of my beloved wife's passing. And, there were tears streaming down my face, and I'm sharing the story from beginning to end. And this medicine woman is completely riveted and deeply listening and actually mirroring my tears. She's weeping with me, right? And I finished the first recitation of the story, in a public context. And she looked at me and she said, "Thank you for sharing your story. There's literally nothing I can do for you other than to let you know that you are held and that you will not be the same man in 13 moons time. That grief is your journey of teaching now, and grief is your teacher." And Oh, she did Olympia cleansing on me due to all the other matters related to the issues around the passing of a beloved. But the actual journey of grief myself, that's a subjective personal odyssey. And that's where we, therefore, as people who are seeing those who are grieving, for example, and I've done a lot of hospice work as well, and that there literally is nothing that we can do other than to be fully present, to listen to their stories, and to, shall we say, place that energetic embrace around them. To let them know that they can be nurtured and held, and cry, to allow them that purification and that transformation, knowing that the journey is going to be a subjective one for them.